Good evening, everybody. We're back here on Gelvin Valley, ready to continue the harvest. Oh, and maybe before I should even take off, I should. Everybody probably remembers at the close of the last episode, I was hung up on this here rock. Well, this time I did a little cheat. I didn't reset my combine. As you'll see here, I can drive right through the rock. What I did is I opened the map and I turned this particular rock object into a non-static object, if you will, not a hard object. Or I'm saying it wrong. I remove collisions from the rock, so now I can drive straight through it. I left all the rest of them alone, and maybe after this episode or something, I'll go fix it back. I don't know. I think what it is, and we'll observe this here just a little bit. Actually, I gotta get IC control turned off. Let me see if I can get that there. I don't know, yeah, if I gotta see it. No, I can't really tell. I think I got it turned off. Anyway, you'll notice as we turn the corner, it's kind of, well, because I was horsing around, you didn't really see it. It kind of cuts the corner a little bit with a wider header. Oh, I wonder what's going way over there for. So when it cuts the corner wide with the wider header, I think when it comes around the corner, it's more likely to hit those rocks than with the narrower header, or so goes my theory. Oh, that's pretty good actually. Last time with the short header harvesting this, it ran into that rock also. But hopefully now that I have 2 rounds around it, hopefully it'll behave and I won't have to fiddle with that anymore. Let me get my tractor going. I probably shouldn't put it right here because it'll probably hit the rocks. Let me see. Yeah, kind of a case in point. Oh, if it isn't one thing, it's another. It's trying. Now it'll wait. I think it's taking care of some of the steepest parts of all this. Let me get a brief picture. Gotta have something for the thumbnail. So, what can I say? I've been embarrassed a number of times with the hired help driving onto rocks, onto fences, onto all sorts of things other than where they are supposed to be driving. So, what can I say? I guess it's just a reflection of their boss. It's kind of like this guy down here. He's going to head straight towards the fence, and I don't get it. But anyway, such is life. Who knows why he chooses to go that way? He gone bad. I think he's full. Well, full enough maybe, so he'll head down over the hill and take it to the sell point. Yeah, boy, and he goes through there almighty quick. But I don't know that I can do much about it. But regardless, back on the harvest here. Looks like my cash position has gone negative into 5 digits again, but I think with this load heading over there, it'll bring us back to 9 digits negative. I kind of want to see where the prices are. Oops, it went over the screen. Well, they're both sideways now. Wheat is higher than I've seen it before. It has been over 200, and barley is kind of hanging there. So we'll just let him sell kind of at that higher price, and we will take it. What can I say? I think last time, before I was interrupted with the uh, rock climbing abilities of the Combine, I think I was talking about a project that I wanted to take on. I don't know if there's much more to say about that in terms of wanting to interview some older people before they pass. Um, Gonna have to start doing it. It's one of those projects that's easy to put off. And I think for some of these folks, I just need to get it on the calendar and get the questions to them and start trying to do some interviews and get something on film before they're gone. And I have a number of people in mind, and yeah, we'll just see how that project goes. Don't know if any of it'll ever end up on YouTube. They may not be comfortable with that, but we'll see. All right, in the meantime, make me some money. But you know what? He's gonna do okay, I think. I better go back. Ah ha ha ha. Yeah, okay. Once you got that second row in there, he knows how to behave. We'll see if he backs up too far. Last time he kind of came in behind or beside that rock over there. Maybe 3 rows is enough for him to do all right. If a guy had time, as much as I have had struggles with and have kind of mildly, I believe, criticized courseplay, you would have the option, if you wanted, to dictate every single move on a field. Like you could, with start course recording, if a person manually combined the whole field, you could tell it exactly where to go, and by all accounts, it shouldn't be hitting any obstacles. So, but it's such a pain to do that. The trouble is when you generate a course for a particular area, it doesn't quite cover the whole area. Unless it's a complete square box or rectangle, then I think it would cover it all. But kind of in our case here, it's with all these funky shaped fields, it isn't going to cover the whole area. So, oh, we have something else we can use for that. Excuse me. Yeah, it looks like he's behaving. We'll go back to make sure this guy can get home safely. A couple of episodes ago, there was a topic I kind of wanted to revisit, at least in part. It kind of came up today at where I work. Um, the topic we had was about jails, and I think I started it all off by mentioning that there was someone I was writing to in jail. And today, I was pretty stoked when I got to my office in town. He had written back to me, some of these, what I've been doing so far mainly is writing to him with regular letters, snail mail, that kind of thing. I've received one letter back from him, handwritten, several pages, which was pretty interesting to read. But then I started something else because I wasn't sure just how hard it was for him to get a hold of, an envelope, stamp, stationery, pens, and paper, and all that jazz. So there's a way within the American prison system you can contact inmates electronically. This must be something new, something they didn't have in the old days, where some of these prisoners, I don't know if these are their own tablets or digital devices that they have in there. I never would have associated any type of computer or that kind of thing to be in a prison type setting. And I imagine there's guys in there that break this stuff all the time and what have you. But apparently some of them have tablets. and so you can contact them. It's kind of similar to an email system, but it does come with a cost. I think it's still considered kind of like postage. And so, like, each time I send him a message, I buy a quote stamp, just like I would for regular postal mail. And but it's cheaper. I think it's 25 cents. And I'm allowed 4,000 characters, to compose some message to him. And there's an intermediary. And you know what? I bet that's what the reason for the cost is. There's there's so much corruption that can happen in the system. And even with all the checks and balances, there still is corruption. Somehow drugs have a way of getting in there, and other forms of, nefarious things. So whenever I write him a message, whether it's, through snail mail or through this digital means, there is somebody there who has to read it and approve sending it on. So I know there's an ad that happens. It delays the process a little bit. And of course, outgoing, I think someone reviews, what he would write to me. And so um, I've received one handwritten letter from him, and apparently there's a second one coming. And he told me that today. But I also got a digital message from him today where he could type it all in. And I think, even though it cost me a little more money, I think I'm going to end up doing it e-message, because what I can do is when I send him a message is I can put a stamp on there, an additional stamp, so he's able to send one to me. Um, I think that's kind of the procedure, so that way it gets paid for both ways, and it can be a quicker response. There's a number of questions I might have that I'm curious about, and if you're just writing into a black hole, I mean, of course, you're not able to tell, or he isn't able to respond timely, quickly, whatever. So I'm kind of looking forward to a little bit more correspondence that way. But it's pretty cool that he takes time to write back. Of course, some may say, time is all that he has right now, so of course he should take time to write back. Be the polite thing to do. So, so anyhow, I'll maybe try to keep you posted how that goes as I learn more about this fellow and kind of what he has going on. But it got me to thinking about something else. I was this, like I say, this topic came up at work today, and I was speaking with one of my business partners, and we were reminiscing back to our school days, and he was just thinking about, this person I'm writing to. He says when he gets out, what kind of opportunities might he have? And here the other night I was kind of taking a downer look at things, that when they get out, a lot of times these previously incarcerated inmates, former criminals, if you will, they can have a very hard time adapting to life outside of prison because, there may not be anybody that wants to hire them, people don't trust them, so forth and so on. And it's hard to shake the past that they have. And even to survive, they may revert to some bad habits, bad practices, because they may feel they don't have any other options. And so we were just visiting, like in this guy's case here, um, what opportunities he might have when he gets out. And this, from everything I know so far, is a changed man. And and like I say, I don't want to get too much into the details of it, for his sake. Although, like I've mentioned last time, it's unlikely he would ever hear this, or anybody that cares would hear about it. But um, he could. One opportunity some of these guys might have is, to become a type of inspirational speaker, to maybe visit with other young people. I think I heard once upon a time, I've never seen it, but isn't there a television show called like Scared Straight or something like that? Um, like I say, I really don't know much about it, so I maybe shouldn't even comment on it. But I thought the premise of it was that, maybe an ex-con would talk to young people or people who are on the edge, who are getting into activities that maybe are going to lead them down a certain path in life, and basically tell them, hey, you may want to back off of that because I've been down that road and here's where it took me, and you're probably not going to want to do that. Thereby, in effect, scaring them straight. And maybe for others, a lot of it is just flat out, it's an anomaly, or it's someone to talk to that has been to, almost like talking to someone who's like a world traveler. I'm not much of a traveler personally, but it's interesting to me to talk to people who are, and to see their pictures, their video footage, or whatever, to see areas of the world that they've seen and that I'll never get to, and you can kind of live vicariously through them a little bit. And I think it'd be a similar dynamic, and maybe even more so when you think of incarceration. Most of the population never has to endure something like that or go through it, but there's probably a natural curiosity. Ever since writing this guy, I've been looking up documentaries on prison and looking up those kinds of things, even on YouTube alone. There's hundreds of videos out there talking about this kind of subject matter, so it's obvious there is some kind of popularity for it, and and uh, and I know some guys coming out of prison. I think I mentioned before. Oh, is he gonna? No, he probably isn't gonna be okay. Let me see here. Yep, he's kissing the good old stone again. There are guys that have turned their former life, if you will, into a type of YouTube. You know what? I'm going to send him to Arkham now. Hopefully, he can make this corner. So some of these guys, when they get out, they've attracted millions of subscribers who are interested in hearing about their experiences in the system, what it was like, and it's almost, maybe it's even a similar dynamic to people watching a horror movie, or watching something that makes you even cringe. It's like you can't hardly turn away, but it's still fascinating. So maybe that's some of the appeal too, I don't know. But just thinking about this man, I'm writing to, and what he could possibly do. I think he's a Christian man now. So maybe there's some young people he could mentor, work with, talk to, especially some that come from similar backgrounds that he had. I mean, he kind of was in a broken home. I think it started okay, but it was torn apart, with a divorce and a number of things, just that was harmful to him as a kid. And I realized not every kid, of course, that grows up in a divorce situation is going to turn out to be a criminal, but some of them do. And who knows what all the um, markers were along the way that took him down the path that it did. Um, but yeah, maybe that's something he could work with young people and help. And I know my business partner mentioned someone he knew in high school. He never, he never was incarcerated, but he kind of was a troubled kid. Very boisterous, very loud, very in your face, and just one of those kids, and would pick fights with people. And I'm not sure where all. I think drugs eventually became a part of his life, and I don't know that he ended up in prison, and I don't know all the details. My partner was just telling me about him, and now this person, similar to the one I've been writing to, has had some life changes, and incidentally, he became a Christian also. And it's interesting. He said he's still loud, he's still boisterous. He said you can kind of almost tell that his brain has been fried a little bit, probably from the drugs that he had and whatnot, but he's trying now to be a positive influence for his faith and for kids, and to warn them of the road he took that resulted in bad things for him in his personal life. I think, like my partner said, this is like his third marriage, and even in the best of times, I know divorces can happen and what have you. It may not necessarily be problems that a person has, or bad upbringing, or even drugs, or whatever. But the point is some of these people maybe can find purpose in helping others avoid what they had to go through. And a couple of the guys I've watched on the internet, on YouTube, that have channels like this, that does seem to be one of their overarching goals. Is they're describing a place that they say they do not want to go back to. They dissuade people from wanting to go there, and basically try to help people, in so many words, clean up their act if this is where they're headed, trying to describe that it isn't really a fun place to be. So, and when I was a kid, I can't remember if I related this story. I know I spent quite a bit of time talking about teachers and whatnot that I had in high school and in my growing up years. I don't think I talked about this one here, and it came to mind today as I was visiting with my partner, and um, he was an economics teacher. He was a football coach, as I recall, and kind of a jock kind of guy, if you will. I mean, he was built like a nail keg, so I mean, I think he pumped a lot of iron. He was just a big guy, and a person shouldn't form stereotypes. I mean, that gets you in trouble. But as a kid, I honestly didn't think he cared about much, when it came to academics, that he was more interested in athletics, football, and that kind of thing. And like I say, he was teaching economics, and of course you can't be any dummy, if you're going to teach a subject like that. And none of my teachers were dummies. Um, I don't mean to say that. And I don't remember anything in particular that he taught us. Well, wait a minute. You know what? I take that back. I'll maybe save that story for another time. There was one other memorable thing that I got to give him credit for. But I would say probably the most memorable thing that he taught me um, was an instance where he never had to say a single word. What he did is he brought to class this guy that, as he told us later, had scared the daylights out of his wife and him, based on an area of town where they were living, which must have been a rougher area or something at the time, until they learned that he was basically harmless. Oh, I better go help out my tractor. Yep, can't find the combine through this little neck. You know what? I probably have... Do I have room? I bet I have room in that combine to finish this field. Anyway, there was this guy who was heckling his wife or something where they lived, and like I say, eventually they figured out he was harmless. But then he invited this guy to class. And who was this guy? Um, I don't remember his name, but I'll never forget meeting him and seeing one of the roughest people I'd ever seen in my life. And I lived a pretty sheltered life growing up. So seeing a guy come into class that basically looked like a bum, disheveled, and didn't have his clothes hardly in order. There was a huge dent in the side of his head. I'm not kidding you. A dent. And he told us later that it came from a massive car wreck that he was in. I don't know if they had to remove some of his brain. I don't know how all that happened, but it literally kicked it in the side of his head, so he didn't even look normal. I don't remember if he had facial hair. probably, but he was a goofy person. And, just talking to him, it didn't take long for you to figure out that he had some things wrong with him. And he, I think his main message when he was speaking to us was don't don't drink alcohol. This guy was on a first name basis with all the cops, in my part in the town where I grew up, and they all knew who he was because he was constantly getting in trouble. And so I think he started to know them on a first name basis too. And it was always booze that was getting him in trouble. So I think that's why he tried to encourage us don't drink booze. But where I say he was off is, we were juniors or seniors in high school. I can't remember the age we were. So 17, 18-year olds in there. And he told us, if you have some good drugs, go ahead and take them, but you stay away from alcohol. And we're all hearing that and say, "What? You're telling us to do drugs?" And this guy here, I mean, he was just a character, heavily addicted to cigarettes. I mean, so much so. I mean, this was in front of kids, and even in those days, I mean, the teachers had a smoking lounge, but they told him that while you're in the classroom, you cannot smoke in front of the kids. But the poor guy was so addicted to these that he had an unlit cigarette, I think, in his behind both of his ears. And while he was talking to us, just to get a teeny tiny hit of nicotine or whatever, he would literally pull these cigarettes and he would suck on them while he was talking to us, and they were dry. They weren't lit or anything, but he would just, suck in on them just to get a tiny little bit of hit. And I think when the class was done, he made a beeline over to the teacher's lounge so he could literally light up and get his cigarette high. So he was obviously addicted to that. I think someone was trying to help him stay off of drugs. He didn't seem to blink an eye at drugs, though. But as a kid, you see this guy. He only showed up one day. He came out of the blue. The teacher didn't tell us he was going to invite a special guest. None of that. And so then, as a kid, you see all this. The teacher really didn't explain anything. He said who he was. He introduced him, and I don't recall him explaining much of anything. But I think he knew that we would all get the point without him having to lecture us or tell us, "See, kids, this is why you don't do drugs. You'll end up like this fella here." There wasn't a word on that. I think we all got the point. Oh dear, Oh, come on. Yeah, okay. I did some damage getting through, but... Now, what do I have planned down here? I have a feeling it's canola in both. Yeah? Alright, 4142 is canola. Very good. Very good. Okay. Let me get him going. I better go send. I'm trying to think, does 41 have its own? I kind of think it does. 41 to, yeah, pheasant. I can still do that because this is barley, so we can sell the barley. So I'm gonna sneak him out of here. But in school, like I say, you get done with a day like this where you hear basically a fruit cake. I mean, he came in there trying to tell us don't do alcohol, and you know what? That part of his message, I guess, was pretty good. Although it isn't a matter of not doing any alcohol or having it, it's to handle it responsibly, when you're mature enough to handle it and to be moderate in it. Not necessarily to teetotal. He probably needed a teetotal. That doesn't mean everybody else need to. But then the drugs, and he was carrying on about the wrecks he had been in with his cars, the joking around he did with the police when he was in trouble. He talked about how rock and roll was his savior, and he started jamming out in class kind of with an air guitar and that kind of thing. Just kind of interesting behavior in front of kids. I remember as a kid feeling a little offended, I guess that's a word for it, that the teacher would have someone like this come and talk to us. But then I thought about it more later, and the more I thought about it, the more ingenious it seemed of the teacher to have a guy like this in. If you want to convince someone that a certain course of action isn't advisable or isn't good, what better way to do it than to let them come to their own conclusion based on some pretty strong evidence, that you put in front of them, aka this particular fella here. I'll never forget that. And so, I mean, this guy here, unwittingly, he's probably long passed away, dead. I don't remember how old he was at the time, 40s, and probably looked like he was in his 60s. He seemed like a more middle-aged, older fellow. But he unwittingly, taught me some lessons. And all of those things add to a person's experience, as to in terms of what their makeup is, when they become an adult. And some people take those lessons and learn from others and chalk it up as something they don't want to do, and others, for whatever reason, either ignore those lessons and never sinks in, or maybe they skip class I don't know. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to revisit the jail topic because I don't know, I kind of left it on a dour note, and I think there are lots of things that these people can do that are really positive and can help others if people are willing to listen. The hard part is it's so hard to learn from someone else's mistakes. It seems like it's hard enough to learn from our own mistakes, let alone from someone else's. And so maybe a lot of times what goes on in the person's mind is, well, okay, you did all this, and look at you, you turned out okay. Now you're talking to others, and you're a good person, so maybe I can get away with this too, or some other path. And so goes the musing and reasoning of the human mind. Whenever there is something we are bound and determined to do, as the saying goes, come hell or high water. But anyway, I chalked that up as a lesson learned, and hopefully it kept me, amongst other lessons or whatever along the way, from getting into areas. I got into enough trouble as it was. Hopefully this kept me out of some other trouble. Anyway, I see I am over my limit on this episode, so I will terminate it here, and we'll pick it all up on the next one. Bye-bye for now, and thank you for watching.